Happy to have my next guest on the show. It's Johnny Munoz Jr., who has another fight this time on May the 6th at UFC 288 when he takes on Daniel Santos. Johnny, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to chat with you.
Absolutely. Well, it's my pleasure. Happy to talk to you for the first time. I'm excited for this fight, and it's been a little while since your last one. That was in November. You had a UD win over Ludwig. Were you hoping to get this much time off, or is this kind of like the perfect time to kind of recuperate and get back at it?
Well, honestly, I was hoping to get in a little earlier. After that last fight, I was kind of planning like March when they had that card at the T-Mobile Arena in March. That's what I was eyeing, but nothing could go through. And then they offered May, and then originally when they offered May, I almost didn't do it. I was like, man, I wanted something sooner because like I think I was offered that maybe or talks about it end of February or something like that. I was like, I need something sooner, like May. And then I was like, well, I guess we'll just do it because you just never know when they offer you a fight. If you say no, and if they can't get you something sooner, then it might be longer than May. So I was like, well, I guess we'll just take May then.
It's got to be exciting to be on a big pay-per-view card, though. This kind of must have worked out. Even though you're coming to the East Coast, I'm sure you might rather be on the West Coast, closer to home. But how excited are you to be on this pay-per-view event?
I'm excited, man. It'll be cool. It's actually my first time on the East Coast. I've been in Miami, uh, which is East Coast, but it's more like I guess like Southern kind of in a way, right? Uh, but yeah, I'm excited to be going over there. Newark, New Jersey. There's a lot of history there. Uh, Sopranos was over there, so that'll be real cool. So I'm excited to fight there. It's a big card, pay-per-view event, and a lot of good fights on that card. So I want to put on a good show for myself, and then showcase why I belong in cards like that.
You going to take any extra time and kind of go around New York, New Jersey, and sightsee? What's the plan as far as sticking around?
Yeah, since I'm there, I want to check it out a little bit. You know what I mean? Check out the city, uh, eat some Italian food afterwards or something. Go to New York. New York's real close, like 20 minutes. I've never been there, so since I'm there, I want to enjoy it. I like traveling, so I feel anytime you get to travel, whatever time you have there, you should try to check out the places. You know what I mean? And I'm still young right now. I don't want to travel later when I'm old. You hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm gonna travel when I'm older, when I'm retired," but it's like, nah, you got to travel now when you're young because when you're older, you're not going to be able to do a lot of things you could do when you're younger.
Absolutely. That's the right mindset, my man. Now, I did
Yes,
see in
sir.
a previous interview that you did after that win over Ludwig, you were hoping to get a new contract. I wasn't sure what your previous contract was with the promotion. Can you kind of let me know what your current contractual status is?
Yeah. So, I mean, after the last fight, I signed a new contract, obviously better. And yeah, so it was just, and I got my management team to think about that for negotiating and everything. So, uh, yeah, so I have four more fights in the company, and I just want to keep progressing, winning, and so you win more money, man. That's what it's all about. I mean, I like to fight. I don't like to fight for money. I originally fight. I got into the sport because I liked what I saw. I thought it was cool, and that's why I do it. I have a passion for martial arts, but you should also, if you're good at something, if you're in something, you should also be compensated well. So at the same time, it's like it's not about money, but at the same time, you got to have respect and be like, hey, you got to get what you're worth.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you at this big win in November, you're 2-2 now in the UFC. So where do you feel like you are as far as right now moving forward? Do you feel like you're in a pretty good position with this new four fight deal to really start to make some serious momentum and maybe get towards that top 15, top 10, and so on?
Yeah, man, I feel like this every fight's important, but this is what's next. This is the next test. So I got to make sure I pass the test, and I know I'm gonna pass it. I feel good, and he's a tough dude, but everyone in the company's tough. We all came a different road to get here. It's the best versus the best, but we just got to eliminate each other to be able to accomplish our goals, and that's what I'm looking to do. And I always say like 135 to me is the hardest division, and I think it's 135 more dangerous outside of the top 15, in my opinion. Like once you're in the top 15, I feel like you're somewhat safer a little bit. especially top 10, you're a little bit more safe. There's a little more cushion. So, a lot of those guys are always like bitching and complaining. I don't want to fight this guy. I don't want to fight this guy. But it's like to get in that spot, it's hard because everybody's tough. And I'm not saying the guys in the top 10 aren't tough. They're tough, of course. Everybody is. They got there. But what I mean is just like outside of it is like there's so many killers that are trying to get in there. And it's like it's hard. Like you can win 3 fights and you're not even in there yet, or maybe 4 fights, you're not even in there yet. Then boom, you're fighting this new killer that's maybe like 1-0, 2-0, but he's dangerous. He could easily take your spot. And it's like you lost everything you worked for. It's like you lost it. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. Like when you're in the top 10, a lot of those guys are fighting each other. So they're not really fighting no one outside of it. So it's like there's somewhat more cushion in there. But I know I'm in the danger zone fighting outside of it, but it's just like killing all these killers to get into that top 15, top 10, and then fight for the belt. Because at the end of the day, that's the goal.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The 135 division is absolutely stacked top to bottom. There's so many talented fighters that you're going to have to compete with just to even get to the top 15. Let's
Yeah.
stick with the division for a second because I wanted to get your take on a couple of things. Rob Font just beat Adrian Yanez most recently. And this is a guy in Yanez that was getting a lot of attention and, rightfully so, a young up and comer knocking people out. What was your, I guess, overall opinion on that outcome, and how good do you think Adrian Yanez can be here moving forward?
Yeah, honestly, I kind of expected that. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a shock to me. I thought Rob Font would get it done. Adrian Giannis, I think he's talented, he's good, he's dangerous. You know what I mean? But I think he got a little too reckless. You know what I mean? When you're finishing guys, it's like you have that. I want to get in there and finish this guy. You know what I mean? He got a little reckless in there with Rob Font. He's been around a long time, knows how to use his jab. I thought Rob Font's jab and movement was going to be the key to victory, uh, which it was a very short fight. It wasn't too long. I mean, it was action packed for what it was. Uh, but I mean, he was using the jab when it was connecting a few times. But there's the straight punches ultimately when Adrian was coming in, trying to land that overhand is what caught him coming in. So I mean, he just kind of walked into it. But I mean, I feel he can bounce back. You know what I mean? Just because you lose, it doesn't define you. What really defines you is your comeback. You know what I mean? If you come back from that, I feel like I think he could, but who knows? There's some guys that when they lose, they don't recover. They don't come back the same. They were getting a lot of hype, and you know what I mean. And then they fail that test that they're on the main card, a ranked guy, and then you didn't pass the test. Sometimes they can mess with your head, but I feel like when things like that happen, just back to the drawing board. I think you really need to study yourself, get to know yourself, really know who you are, and then come back from that, and then just come back with a vengeance.
Well said. And obviously, the main event of UFC 288 is for the 135 title. Aljamain Sterling, Henry Cejudo. Give me your prediction there. Who do you see winning that fight? And if Cejudo does win and he faces Merab next, how do you see that matchup? Do you feel like Merab would beat Henry?
Yeah. So I mean, for starters, the Sterling Cejudo fight. I mean, I don't know. I could see it go either way. That there's just a bunch of things because I feel Cejudo's been out a while. You know what I mean? You could tell when someone looks comfortable. You know what I mean? It's a different mentality. Uh, but who knows? He's an egotistical maniac, so he's probably training. He really wants to win the belt. So I mean, I just don't know. I feel like Sterling. Can he get him down? That's the question. Cejudo's obviously an Olympic wrestler, and he's shorter. And with shorter guys, it's hard to get under him. So for me, that's the problem Sterling's going to have because Cejudo's a shorter guy. He's going to have to get under him more than he usually has to on most guys. And Cejudo has solid wrestling. And if it stays on the feet, I mean, we've seen Cejudo. I mean, he's knocked a couple guys out. So I feel like he might have the advantage there. But if Sterling can get on his back, and I feel like he could finish him. But I mean, I've never seen anybody get on Cejudo like that. So the fight's going to be interesting. But if Cejudo does win, him and Merab, that would be an interesting fight. You know what I mean? Merab's like a very hard puzzle to solve. He puts that pressure. Even if he can't get you down, he has you on the fence. You can't get away. He's swarming you. And it's very frustrating. So, I mean, that fight, too, would be interesting. I feel like Merab would have a better chance in beating Cejudo than Aljo. Uh, but it's just going to be very interesting what happens because if Aljo wins, like what happens now? You know what I mean? Uh, does he stay there? Does he move up? You know what I mean? But if Cejudo wins, I feel like it opens a lot of things up in the division. So it's going to be interesting.
If you had to pick the best bantamweight in the world right now, who would you say it is?
Best bantamweight in the world right now. I could say myself, I'm in the division. You know what I mean? Because I really believe like I have a lot to show, and in my opinion, I am the best. You know what I mean? I just got to show everybody um, why I'm the best. You know what I mean? 'Cause I know what I could do. You know, I've trained with a lot of high level guys. I know training and fighting's different, and uh, and I'm not one of those guys that's gonna get on here and talk about training sessions. I feel guys that talk about training sessions as fucking or bitches. You know what I mean? That's bitch shit right there. You don't talk about training sessions, but I feel like once people see what I could do in there, more of me. Once they keep seeing more of me, I feel like I'm the best guy in the division. You know what I mean? I could give a lot of these guys trouble. And I feel like a lot of these guys lack certain things. I don't want to say it because I want to be able to exploit those things when the time comes. But I mean, obviously, as of right now, to the MMA community, what they see is the best guy in the world or at 135 would obviously be the champ, and he's the champ. So I feel if you're the champ, you're the best guy. You know what I mean? Even though there could be another guy better, uh, coming up, but he's still you got to show it. You know what I mean? So I feel like Aljo, he's the best 135 right now. He has the belt. You know what I mean? There could be a guy in the division better than him, but we've yet to see it. So I think once we see it, and that's what I want to show. I want to show everybody why. I could sit here and say I'm the best, but I got to go out there and prove it.
I love that answer, man. I don't think you could have given a better one. And how old are you now?
I just turned 30 this year, man.
Okay. So you're still,
hit,
yeah, you're still a young buck, man. You got so much time in front of you. Your prime years are still ahead of you. And obviously, it starts with this upcoming fight with Daniel Santos. Tell me a little bit about camp. I know I saw you were in Mexico, California. What has this camp been like? Who have been like your main training partners to get you ready for Santos?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been training. I train at Sequence Gym that's in Norco, California, but also Entram Gym in Tijuana, Mexico. So I'm down there a lot. Most of the camp I've been in Mexico, down there training with a lot of guys. But my guys been helping me a lot. You know, obviously, Alan Superglue Martinez is my cousin, my number one training partner. He's going to be in my corner. He's always in my corner. But specifically, Christian Quinones, he's in the UFC. He's been helping me a lot. Uh, he's a great training partner. And just all the guys down there, you know what I mean? Uh, uh, Mauricio Dragon Nieves, he's fighting in Loops. That's a show in Mexico. Uh, but those guys specifically, a lot of people, but mainly those three specifically been helping me a lot, you know, taking the time to go out of the way. And that's what you need. You know what I mean? It's very important when you have a fight, you have teammates that are going to be willing to take the time and help you out. You know what I mean? Giving you the right looks, doing the studying and all that stuff. And I feel that's what makes a successful team and a successful fight camp, as well as the great coaching.
And I know we're still a ways out, 3 weeks ish from fight night. What's the weight at right now? Is the cut to 135 still, very manageable for you?
Yeah, it's manageable. You know, I wouldn't say it's easy, but I kind of have a system down. And I feel like cutting weight, it really depends on the person. Like everybody's body reacts different, but I feel like for me, I kind of have a system that works for me and it works great. You know, I'm able to eat and not starve myself. I think it's so stupid that guys starve themselves because now you're not able to train correctly. I think it's very important that you're hydrated, you're fueled up for all the training sessions, and starving yourself is just stupid. You know what I mean? There's other ways to get the weight down. Obviously, you got to watch your eat. I'm not saying to eat pizza and like burgers and all that stuff. You got to eat healthy, eat good, but you should still be eating a good portion so you're energized to train. And my weight's good right now. You know what I mean? And it's where it needs to be at. We're like 3 weeks out, so it's where it needs to be at. And I always make weight like a professional. I think it's super important as a athlete, especially at this level, to make weight.
Tell me what you think about your opponent, Daniel Santos. He's 10-2. We saw him most recently, round 2 win over John Castaneda. Before that, he had a UD loss to Julio Arce were you able to kind of pick something, here and there from that performance where you feel like maybe you'll be able to implement your game plan, your style on that fight and get a win here?
Yeah, of course. So I've watched his fights. You know what I mean? He's a tough guy. Like I mentioned, everybody in the UFC is tough, especially all the 35ers tough. So you gotta be more than tough uh, to keep climbing in the division. But I know he's like a pressure fighter, comes forward. You know, he has that shootbox style. You know what I mean? All the shootbox guys, they fight similar. They come forward. They like to throw down, get in slugfest. They'll throw that they're getting rocked, but they'll stay in the fight to try to get a knockout, try to get a win. You know what I mean? And both those fights. You know what I mean? To me, he was losing his second fight with Castaneda. He was losing that fight, but he showed toughness, showed the will to win, heart, and I think that's what makes him dangerous. He comes forward, but the fact that he's able to take punishment and still stay in there. So I feel that's his strength right there. But at the same time, like, you know, the brain's a very fragile thing. Like, how many shots can you take? You know what I mean? And I feel like I want to exploit that in this fight. You know what I mean? So I mean, you could come do all that stuff on me, but you got to be way better. You got to bring more skill sets to the table if you're going to beat me. You got to be more than just tough, pressure. So I'm not going to let you off the hook, and I'm not going to gas out or make any little mistake like that. I train hard to not make mistakes and be able to capitalize on positions and win the fight and come out the victor. You know what I mean? This is the art of war. So I got to know the battlefield. I got to know my opponent. I got to know all the keys to victory. And I also got to know what he's thinking of me to win. So I'm very aware of all that stuff. And I feel like I'm going to go in and this is going to be the bull versus the matador in this fight. You know what I mean? And I'm going to be the matador. And I'm going to come out with the victory.
You talked about how durable, how tough he is. Do you envision you kind of like wearing him down as the fight goes on and maybe finishing him late? Give me your ultimate prediction here.
Yeah, I mean, I see myself just wearing this guy down. You know what I mean? He's a tough dude. If we get the finish first round, I'm always looking. Uh, if we get a first round finish, cool, great. We go home easy. But my mind's honestly prepared for the three rounds, 15 minutes, and this is my new mentality. I go in with all the fights. You know what I mean? Uh, I like to look at a couple different scenarios that how I could win. You know what I mean? I always look at three scenarios. What are my three scenarios to victory that I can see myself winning? And I always just look at those three, and then one of the three will happen. You know what I mean? 'Cause you got a lot of guys, I'm a first round finish, and it's great. I like the confidence. But the thing with that is, like, when that shit doesn't go your way, and then you're in there gassed out, and then you look at your face, like you look at that fighter's face expression, that just shows like you're all that shit you were saying you really didn't believe. You know what I mean? It's because you were just thinking naive. You know what I mean? Confidence is a great thing, but you can't be overconfident. And I feel like I'm very confident. That's why I like to set up three different scenarios how I could win this fight. Uh, and like what one of the scenarios I'll give you, I feel like if this hits the floor, like he's getting subbed. You know what I mean? I feel like no one in the division could compete with me on the ground, and that's something I'm very sure of. That I have the best jujitsu in the whole division. I come from a jiu-jitsu background. I've won a lot of major titles in jiu-jitsu, and I also feel my style of jiu-jitsu is different for MMA because you see a lot of jiu-jitsu guys that they're not making the transition the same. Uh, but I feel like I had to change my style a lot as I was coming up through MMA in my earlier career. I feel I have a good style now that if we hit the floor, like I'm confident it's a wrap. You know what I mean? And I feel a lot of these guys when I hit the floor in my fights, when I feel them. Like my last fight, I was more striking, but when I did hit the floor, I was like, man, I should have took this guy down way sooner. You know what I mean? It feels like very effortless down here, and I know that's a big key I have over a lot of these guys is jujitsu, and I'm sure most people are aware. Oh, he's just a jujitsu guy, so they're going to be thinking defend the takedown, which is fine, but they're going to be surprised by other things, and then they're going to forget about the jujitsu, and then that's one of my scenarios I have in my head.
All right, man. I love it. I can't wait to see you back in there, Johnny. I know November wasn't too long ago, but it would have been nice to see you before May the 6th. But again, UFC 288, it's a monster card to be on. Again, Newark, New Jersey. Johnny Munoz Jr. faces Daniel Santos in a bantamweight bout. Again, I appreciate the time. Fantastic having you on the show for the first time. Before we do sign off, I want to give you the floor. Please tell people where they can follow you on social media. If you have anyone to thank, the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I want to shout out Ed for setting this up as well. Also, you, Ryan, for having me on the show, reaching out. Uh, Appreciate you guys. Appreciate everyone that supports me. Stay tuned. Watch this fight. May 6th. Going to be a great card over there in Newark on the East Coast. And you guys can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Kid Kavimbo. Follow me there. Also, check out my website, teamkidkavimbo.com. If you want to support me for the fight, wear my shirt, merchandise. You know, it's always helpful. So thank you guys.